Hello, welcome to Bob's Dungeon. My name's Bob, I'll be your host. Over the years, White Wolf put out several games for the World of Darkness setting. Some of the games are a good fit for that setting, such as Vampire, Werewolf, Wraith. Others kind of make you scratch your head and wonder why they're in the World of Darkness to begin with. And that's what we're going to talk about in this video, one of those games. We're going to talk about Changeling The Dreaming, 1st edition. This book has 293 pages and a copyright of 1995. It was published by White Wolf Publishing, and all of the artwork in this book, unlike the other White Wolf books that were out at the time, the artwork is both in color and black and white. Let's go ahead and look at that artwork.
Half of the artwork in this book is in black and white, while the other half is in full color. All of the artwork is very well done in this book, and goes a long way to setting a creepy tone for what some would think is a silly game.
To play this game, what you're going to need is a copy of this core rulebook and as many 10-sided dice as you can get your hands on. The character generation in this game is pretty standard as per most White Wolf games. You first figure out your attributes, and you have 3 sets of attributes, which are your physical attributes, which consists of strength, dexterity, and stamina. You have your social attributes, which consist of charisma, manipulation, and appearance. And then you have your mental attributes, which consist of perception, intelligence, and wits. Each of these attributes start with 1 dot for free in them. And a dot represents the number of dice you roll when you use that attribute. And the attributes can go all the way up to 5 dots. When you start making your character, you get to pick your priorities in these attributes. Your highest priority set of attributes, whether it be your social, your mental, or your physical, will get 7 dots to split up amongst them, not counting the free dot for each attribute. Your second prioritized set of attributes will get 5 dots to split up amongst them, and your least prioritized attribute will get 3 dots. Then you move on to your abilities. And like the attributes, your abilities are split up into 3 categories. You have your talents, which are things that pretty much come naturally to you, things that you're just good at. You have your skills, which are things that you've trained to be good at, things you've learned through training. And then you have your knowledges, which is pretty much book smarts, things that you've studied to learn. And you prioritize these categories like you do your attributes. Your highest priority gets 13 dots to split up amongst them. Your second gets 9 dots to split amongst them. And your least prioritized one gets 5 dots. Unlike the attributes, though, you do not get a free dot in each of the skills under these headings. If you don't put dots in them, you don't have that one. You can try to use it with the attribute alone, but it's more difficult. After you get that part of your character figured out, we'll jump back up to the top of the character sheet, and you got to pick a court that you belong to. And the 2 courts that you can belong to are the Seelie and the Unseelie. And with each of these courts, there are several legacies. And you choose a legacy for your character, both for your Seelie and your Unseelie side. So you'll have 2 legacies. But the legacy that is tied to the court you're with, like let's say you're with the Seelie court, your Seelie legacy takes preference. If you're with the Unseelie court, your Unseelie legacy takes preference. The other one doesn't matter as much, but it's still present. And it explains that a little bit better in the book. But there are several legacies for each of the courts, and you choose one for each court, even though you technically only belong to one court. It's kind of weird, but it makes sense in the context of this game. After you choose that, you choose your seeming. Changelings are pretty much born human. They grow up, and then at one point, their changeling nature appears. And your seeming is pretty much when your changeling persona came into effect. You have the Changeling, which the Changeling, you became a changeling as a child. So you're perceived as a child, and your changeling nature is pretty much childlike. You have the Wilder, which is a teenager, as far as changelings go. You were a teenager when your changeling side came to be. And then you have your Grumps. And as a Grump, you became a changeling when you were a full adult. And so you're kind of an adult Grump. But anyway, your seeming gives you your starting glamour, willpower, and banality. And the glamour in this game, it's used for casting cantrips and augmenting certain things. And it can also be used to allow normal humans to see your fey nature and other fey things. Your willpower is standard par normal White Wolf rules, and it can augment certain rules and do special things within its own area, but it's in every White Wolf game. Then you have your banality. Your banality is, I don't want to call it corruption, because it's not really a corruption. The banality is the modern logical world destroying the imagination in you. It's putting things where they're not as fanciful, they're more mundane, and that's bad for changelings. Then you pick your backgrounds. You get 5 dots for backgrounds. There are different backgrounds for you to choose from. And after that, you get to pick your arts. You got 3 dots for arts. And the art is like a type of magical power that a changeling has. It's called a cantrip. And then you pick your realms, and you get 5 dots for realms. And your realms is like a focus for your arts. And you put them together to actually cast your cantrips. And it explains how each art affects different realms in the book. And it's pretty neat. When you're casting your magic, you can spend a point of glamour to get by certain obstacles. But they present you with 2 ways of casting your cantrips in this game. The first being using cards. And White Wolf printed a bunch of cards specifically for this game so that you can cast your cantrips. It also has a blank sheet in the back set up so that you can make your own cards and do your own like that, which is kind of cool. But then they offer another set of rules for using just dice. And it seems like they're pushing the cards more than the dice method, but that may just be me. But it's tells you what you need to roll for the dice method in this book, and it's pretty neat. When you use the dice method or the other method, you have something called a bunk. And a bunk is a little task that you must carry out before the cantrip takes place. It could be anything as simple as just starting a lighter, or as complicated as walking to the ends of the earth, or whatever. It gives descriptions in here of what you got to do, and it's kind of neat. Anyway, after you get those taken care of, you can choose a Keith. A Keith is the type of changeling you are. And there are several types of changelings. There are the Boggans, the Issue, the Knocker, the Puka, the Redcap, the Satyr, the She, the Shrew, and the troll. And each of these have a frailty and a birthright for you to jot down your character sheet. And if you're a she, you get to pick a noble house to belong to. The other Keith don't have a noble house, but you can write a noble house that you're loyal to, but you're not actually part of that loyal house. Only the she are. The she are pretty much the leaders in the Changeling Society, the top Keith. But anyway, that's character creation. When you get all that, you spend your 15 freebie points as per standard in the Old World Darkness. And there's different costs for everything, and you can increase the dots and whatever you want. It's pretty neat. The core mechanic in this game is standard for all White Wolf games. You add an ability and an attribute together to come up with a die pool. And the die pool is equal to how many dots these are added together. And that's how many 10-sided dice you roll. And there are varying difficulties in the Old World of Darkness. Your Game Master chooses what the difficulty is for the task you're committed to. Then you roll the dice and see how many successes you get. Usually you only need one success to succeed. Sometimes you might need several, depending on what your Game Master decides. If you roll a 10 on one of the dice, it's an automatic success. A 10 can never fail. If you roll a 1 on one of the dice, that's an automatic failure. Not only is it an automatic failure, but that 1 gets rid of one of your successes, starting with whatever the highest die success was. So if you roll a 10, the 1 cancels it out. If you calculate your roll and you have more 1s than you have successes, then you have botched. The more 1s you have left over, the worse the botch is. And usually that means that something bad has happened. The Game Master decides on what that is. Combat is pretty standard for the World of Darkness for that time. When you add one of your attributes to an appropriate combat skill, roll your dice, and if you're using a ranged weapon, however many successes you get, add to your damage. If you're using melee or brawl, you don't get to do that. Each attack has a number of dice you roll to determine damage. And you roll those dice, and for each success, that's a point of damage. You can never botch on a damage roll. And I guess that's cool. But you can also do absolutely no damage whatsoever, which is not so cool. This game has everything you need to get started in playing a Changeling game. It talks about the setting and the world that the Changeling live in, which is a darker version of our world, the World of Darkness. It talks about Chimera. Chimera come in two forms. They come in creatures that you can either have as companions or actually fight. And they come in items such as weapons and stuff that you could use. And it talks about banality and how the Changeling world, like Arcadia, used to be easy to get to from our world, but then the Sundering occurred, which split them, and the Changeling got stuck here. And as recent as 1969, some of the pathways reopened to the Changeling, to the Fey homeworld, and so now there are some crossing overs, and it's pretty neat. It has some write-ups in here, some simplifications for some of the other denizens of the World of Darkness, such as the vampires, the werewolves, the wraiths, the mages. It's even got some stuff on the autumn people in here. It's got a pre-made setting for you to use. And all in all, it's a pretty good book. It's got a blank character sheet in the back for you to photocopy and use. At first glance, you wonder why this game belongs in the World of Darkness, but when you actually read through it and get what it's trying to say, it actually does have a place in the World of Darkness. Maybe not as much as some of the other books, but yeah, I can see it in the World of Darkness. Which brings me to 3 questions. when I play a character in this game, I have a lot of back issues with the World of Darkness, with the old World of Darkness, so probably not. Would I run this game? I could probably see myself really running this game at some point because I really want to like this game. This game is really cool. I like the ideas behind it. I like the setting. But I've had a lot of issues with this game. Would I recommend this game? I would recommend this game, but I also want to give you a word of caution. Every single time I've ever ran this game, or have ever played in this game, it has ended either in the first session or the second session. It has always ended the exact same way, with all of the players using their cantrips to out-silly each other while they use their cantrips on each other to see who can be sillier. That really defeats the purpose of this game. This game should be dark and a pathway to insanity, losing your imagination. It should be a dark game, not who can be sillier. And that's one of my main beefs with this game, is my experiences in the past. If you can find a group that could take it serious to play this game, I would highly recommend you to give it a shot, because there's some good stuff in this game. And that's pretty much all I got to say for Changeling The Dreaming First Edition right now. Please join me next time where we'll talk about something else. Bye.